Hey, so the first thing I want to do today when I'm working on this feature toggling project is to add a build script. The reason I want to do this is because it's a good idea to have a build script, and the earlier on you add one to a project, the better. It will help you catch those errors before they become widespread. If you've ever had a large project and then tried to automate the build right at the end of the project, all of the deployment and configuration and build issues will come out at that point, and by the end of a project you don't generally have the time to fix all this stuff. Get it set up at the beginning of the project when you're not so pressured, and it'll pay dividends throughout. As this is targeting .NET Core, I don't actually need to put very much in a build script. In fact, I've just copied this from another project. Yes, so this is going to live at the root of my project, so I need to pass the project directory, which we're using this little one-liner, which is a reasonable method of finding the current directory from inside a bash script. It doesn't work for all cases, but for our build it should be enough. And then I'm going to try doing the solution rather than a CS project directly, but I have no idea if that'll actually work. And then our output is going to be the current directory, finish again, /build. And we'd better make sure that our gitignore file is ignoring the build directory, because we don't want to commit any contents of that to source control. And let's see what happens. Project file does not exist. The project probably need a source directory in there. No, that does exist. I thought you could just run .NET Restore on a solution file, but maybe not. Let's just try manually. .NET Restore. Oh, well, that worked. So it's something up with having the full directory path. Well, let's try putting in this whole path. Project file does not exist. I wonder if it's because it's mixing the terminal, the slashes, and the being forwards on Windows and backwards on Linux distributions. No, the other way around. Forward slashes on Linux. So let's paste that in there and do .NET Restore. See, this is the reason why you want to do these things early. Imagine trying to come back to do this at the end of the project and then having to fight with getting your paths correct. Oh well, as this is in the root, we'll just cheat and do this. Okay, that's really weird now. So it works if I type it here. Ah, no, it's just that I can't spell. That's better. eventually move my spare monitor onto this so that I can use the Twitch chat on a separate window, but until I actually move the monitor. Right, unable to create directory .build all, that's not surprising. That's in the wrong location. Ah, it's referring to a directory that doesn't exist. Let's try that. To be honest, I'm not sure why there's publishing that twice. And we've ended up with the build in the wrong location. So it's clearly relative to the project's path. So if we do that, project directory, up one, that. Maybe. And let's get rid of our first publish as well. That's more like it. Now we've got a build directory at the base. Now, the downside to running this on the solution is that I am publishing everything, and I don't want to publish everything, I just want to publish this. What do I want to publish? I think I actually want to package. So have a look at one of my other libraries. I can't remember which one's a .NET Core one. Possibly that one. There we go. So build, and I've just got all the individual projects specified. Then test against the particular test version, or the particular test project. Then we make a deployment directory, and then .NET pack. Output build. Yep, I'm going to cheat and copy that. In fact, I'm going to leave this one open because we'll use another part from this, because I'm going to set up the actual build server to use this script as well. So I'll have 2 copies of Atom open. Right. The name of the project is Crispin. Really should have picked something I could type. Oh well. And yes, my other projects use that as the convention. That's not. I wonder where that's going to output it to. Oh well, one way to find out. Yes, not where we want it. But we do have a NuGet package now. Right. Let's use that. So we'll change this exclude to exclude that directory. And we'll just put the rerouting back in place. This is actually running the tests. Couldn't find a project to run tests from in sort of project. We'll pass the path to the test project. I wonder if it's because I'm missing like a console runner or something. I'll deal with that in a second. Right, let's remove the .build directory. And we're going to add the gitignore file and the build file. See what the difference on that toggle is. Nothing major on that, and these are all artifacts we don't want. So git scrub. And we'll check out this one file that we don't want. Right, so cm build add basic build script. Oh, I can't spell build script. Amend. Oh, can't spell, can't type. Good attributes for a software developer. Right, let's fix the fact that the tests didn't run. Now, as this project has tests which run, using project.json. So let's have a look at the test project. See, it's only a Visual Studio runner. Is there a package that does command line running? xunit.runner. And we have one called console. That sounds like a useful starting place. Let's try adding that. Right, good. So test is just the path and the mode. Well, no, I'm going to bother specifying the mode, but we can just go .NET test source Crispin.tests. Oh, you can apparently just specify the directory. That's interesting. Alright, I'll do that instead. Right, now we have some tests that run. Now, that error, I wonder if that means the build script doesn't work with it and I need to specify the thing even more. Build everything. Build things again. No tests run. So I suspect we need to do that on the end of there, .cs prod. I don't like having to do that. I kind of want to just do just with the solution file. I wonder if that works. No. Oh well, worth checking. Oh, now we seem to have tests running. Excellent. And we have the build output as well in NuGet package version 1 because I haven't set anything else up yet. Right. Build update to run tests. Now what we want to do is set up a build server. Now what we can do for that is use AppVeyor, which is here. Now, AppVeyor, you can configure it through the UI, but the UI will then also allow you to export this AppVeyor YML file. So, AppVeyor YML. So the AppVeyor YML file, if that's present in the root of your repository, takes precedence over any configuration you do to their UI. So I can run a build script which just runs bash shell, runs the build sh file, and passes in release mode as the configuration, which here we've been using debug instead. And all these commands get the debug flag passed in. And then the build output directory, we're going to scan any packages that match this path, and there'll be NuGet packages and available in AppVeyor itself. So we'll add that to the repository. Build add AppVeyor config, and we'll push that because not having it there isn't helpful when we don't have it pushed publicly. Right, so in AppVeyor we can go to New Project, GitHub, and then we have to find it. And that was it. We now have a build server set up. Team City, you could learn something from this. So I'm just going to trigger off a new build, which will probably fail for some reason. So many NuGet packages. Oh, the build worked. Excellent, build success. So that artifacts has caused the NuGet package to be available here. So if I'm going to deploy this to, say, NuGet or something, then that's where I can get it from. Now, I know that I'm writing a service, so a NuGet package might not be my ending output, but AppVeyor supports many other different types of artifacts. So if we go into here, we can see we can select apparently auto or web deployment package. But I'm going to leave it as the NuGet package for now because that's a good artifact to start with. This means that whenever I push code to the repository, this will automatically trigger an AppVeyor build. And you can use badges and such to put them into your README document to show the build status. And we can get a breakdown of the tests, including how fast they were. That one was very slow. When multiple events are saved. I wonder if that was just the first test that ran. When multiple... Oh well. Right, now that we've got some housekeeping out of the way, let's go back to the more fun activity of domain modeling. So last time we created a feature toggle which has the ability to be created and the ability to be loaded. And according to Rajaba there, I don't have any tests for this. Tut tut. No, and it's right, I don't. So let's create a generic toggle tests class. And we will say fact when loading from an event stream, var events equals a new array. We better say object, even though we're going to have one object in it. And this is going to be a new toggle created event. And a toggle created event has a GUID, a name, and a description. So our GUID is going to be GUID new GUID. Our name, actually let's do this instead. Okay, maybe not. this into a separate variable. And then do that and say var toggle equals toggle.load from. Get rid of that. Do that. And that. And no point having that on multiple lines because it's not providing any particular benefit. And now we can just say toggle.id, oh no, toggle should satisfy all conditions. And then we will do toggle.id should be toggle created.id, and the copy-paste design pattern, and which will say name and description. Now, if I was doing a normal .NET 4 project, I would be using auto fixture to hi Wolfie, go Wolfie even. Yeah, if I was using .NET 4.6, I would be using autofixture to create these toggles so that I don't have any static values associated with the properties. But autofixture doesn't support .NET Core yet, so manual properties it is. If I was really concerned about the values not being static, I would use a random new random and generate GUIDs or something, use GUIDs for the names and such. I guess your third attempt at pronunciation written down is right? I don't know, I don't like the sound of it said out loud either way, which is a bit weird. But it's a unique-ish name, so... So, now that we've proved that our toggle can be loaded and created, and I'm tempted to move these all into our toggle tests for the time being. Well, we are going to end up with quite a lot of tests for it. So in fact, a better idea, so let's just commit these before I go and refactor everything and thus break it all. Tests, toggle, add tests for toggle load. What we shall do is add a directory called toggle, which might clash with things, we'll find out in a minute. Take those, dump those in there, fix their namespaces, and then we'll go into this file. No, maybe we won't. There we go. Toggle created tests. Yeah, see, now we have to have a namespace import, which is going to annoy me. So instead we shall go... Oh, there we go. Toggle tests. Ah, yes, I did lower the bitrate. You're right, 6 meg was probably a bit overkill for a static screen of text. And now we'll fix the namespaces again. Hopefully we don't have the need for that anymore. But apparently it's not going to fix this for me, so I have to manually go and delete them again. And we'll do the same in that as well. There's only one in here. Right. Run all the tests, make sure I've not broken anything. Shouldn't have done, but you never know. And commit that. That's effectively just a namespace change. Nice. Tests. In fact, namespace says very descriptive. the easy events to add would be name changing and description changing, but I'm not going to do those because they're fairly boring. But I think toggle changing would probably be a good place to start. So we shall add our methods, public void switch on, why not, throw new not implemented exception, and public void switch off, throw new not implemented exception. So now we will go and create a new test, new class, toggle tests? That doesn't sound right. Toggle switching tests. And the first thing we need to do is actually have a toggle, so underscore toggle equals toggle dot create new test toggle. That, and that can be read only. Now our first method is when nothing has happened, and then we'll have when an off toggle is turned on, when an on toggle is turned on, when an off toggle is turned on, and finally when an no, that's not right. When an off is turned on, when an on is turned on, when an off is turned off. When an off toggle is turned on. Right. Let's do that actually. When an off one is turned on, when an on one is turned on, when an on one is turned off, and when an on one is turned... No, I'm confusing myself. Off. Yes, good. Now, this one's easy enough, so nothing has happened. This one, our input state, when an off toggle is turned on, so we can go toggle dot switch on, and this one is toggle dot switch on, but it needs to be on in the first place, so do that, and we'll have that and that, and then we have when an off toggle is turned off, so switch off. Now we could set up our data, in fact I might do this. Yeah, I don't like having it like this because we're going to have to assert on state and other, well, it doesn't make a lot of odds. What I'm considering is rather than creating a toggle each time, actually doing a load and loading it from a creation and a turn on or a turn off event to put it into the state we want before calling this method. Mostly because this requires the same event to be emitted twice, and I want to check that we only have one event pending here, rather than two switch on events. Oh well. So let's add a helper method. We'll call it private void, no, right, IEnumerable object, which are the events, and it is going to some method, I think. Do I want a method or no? Let's do a property. That's going to return I event did not like that toggle get pending events. Oops. What is going on? Fighting the IDE half the time. Oh well. So the events should be empty. So nothing should have happened. When a toggle is turned on, events should be, yeah, we definitely want to load, because at the moment our event, this will fail even if we create our new event. So if let's just create our event. Let's do that now. So class toggle switched on. Oh, switch. I could have sworn I typed ed, but apparently not. Medium failed to match type, and I don't need any parameters on it at the moment, I don't think. We will do later, but not yet. Switched off. Right, so we've got some events. So we're going to expect this to be let's be a bit better with about it. We'll go select e.getType. So now we have the types of the events, so we can now say should be new type of toggle switched on. Now this test will fail, not only because of this toggle switched on, it'll fail because we're creating a toggle here, which is going to add a pending event of toggle created. So in fact, rather than doing like this, what we shall do is go load from new toggle created GUID.NewGUID test toggle, no description. Now our pending events, assuming this single line here works, will just be the switch changing state rather than a toggle created followed by a switch changing state. Now while I could do the test to catch both, I don't want to test for that because it's nothing to do with what the behavior that I'm trying to check works. So when an on toggle is turned on, yeah, we definitely want to create our toggle in the state that we desire so we can assert what our events should be. So, new helper method, we're not going to do that anymore. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a params object array events. And we'll call it toggle. It's going to return a toggle and it's going to be called create toggle. And that's not going to exist anymore, I guess. No, actually that's useful to have, so we're not going to return anything. Do that, or do void, and it can assign to it, so that can't be read-only. And what we're going to do is we'll have our created event, and we shall hit the wrong key. Just format that all up and do concat events. Yeah, I think that'll do it. So here we say create toggle and do nothing. So that'll create us one in the default state. This time we want an off toggle which is turned on, so again we don't need to do anything, just create a blank toggle. this time we want a toggle that is on, so what we shall do is do create toggle, but this time we shall also say new toggle switched on. And now we don't have to have a second call to our switch on. We can just have the single one, and we can now say events should be new array of, hang on, we have an on toggle, and we're going to tell it to be on again, but it's already on. Now we have the choice of logging the event to say, you know, someone tried to switch it on, but that didn't really do anything, or we can not store the event because it doesn't make any sense to try and turn on a switch that's already on. And I think that sounds cleaner, so I'm going to go should be empty, and then we have, we'll take the off one next, so this should be the same, so create toggle, new toggle switched off, and again, to mimic the behavior of the other ones, we're going to say our events should be empty because turning off an off switch doesn't do anything. And finally, we have when an on toggle is turned off, so again we create the toggle with a toggle switched on event, and this time we want to say events should be a new array containing type of, this is on to off, so it should create a toggle switched off event. Oh no, I can't type apparently because that should be switched. Not. All events should always be past tense, because an event is something that happened, as opposed to a command which is something you want to happen. And look, again, we can't do formatting of the bloody document. That's really annoying. Oh well, we'll come back to that later. Right, and these should all fail. Except maybe the when nothing has happened test. Yep, these are all not implemented. The given key is not present in the dictionary. Yeah, no, that makes sense, because we're trying to create an event without, sorry, we're trying to apply an event without actually having a method to apply it. So let's register for a toggle switched on event to an apply method. And we'll do the same again for off. And that's got an apply method. And we'll generate an overload for it. And then move them into the right place in the file. Now our events don't have any data, but just the fact that the event exists is enough for us to do things. So what we want is a public bool active get, and as with everything else, private set. And we say when we receive this off event, we shall set active equal to false, and when we receive on, we shall say active is true. Now we've got some methods, properties that we can add to test. So when we switch on something, toggle active should be true. When an on toggle is turned on, it should be true, but the event should be empty. This should be false because we're turning something off, as this should be false as well. this should still at least partially fail, because we still haven't actually implemented our switch on and switch off methods. But we should now no longer have key not found method errors, which we don't. So let's implement switch on, which is really nice and simple. We're just going to say apply event new toggle switched on. Now this is still going to fail the tests, I think, because we're not checking if the switch is already on. We're just always going to erase this, so we should get some errors. When an off toggle is turned on. Yep, so this is right, so the toggle is off, we switch it on, it now becomes active, and there's a single method. But when an on toggle is turned on, we get this error. We should have one item in this list. No, we should have an empty list, but we've got one item, which is this toggle switched on. Which just means we need to say, well, we could do a one-liner, but it's beginning to be nasty, so we shan't. Say if active return. Excellent. So now we can do the same thing with this. Say if active equals false, return. Otherwise we will apply the event new toggle switched off. Excellent. So part of the bit that makes this a rich domain model is that we have methods like this. You're performing a domain action like switch on a switch, as opposed to setting the active property to true. Because not only is setting an active property to true, we wouldn't be able to do the emitting of these events so easily. You're also not able to group things together, which we'll come and see in a little while, because at the moment our switching on of a toggle just turns it on. But what we're going to want to do is think about our other requirements, which were in the README file, such as this security requirement. And we want to have logging of the toggles, like when they changed and such. So we probably want to store a timestamp for these, but also we're going to want to store maybe the identifier of who did the switching of the toggle. Now, if you had a property called active and you were just setting it to true or false, you'd now have to have side effect type logic in the setter of your property, something to update the edited date or update the created date or update who did the setting. And we really don't want to have that, because you might forget. If you've got a large complicated domain object, you don't want to forget that this someone outside of the object might just set up active to true and forget to update the edit date. So by doing this, we're forcing a consistency within our model. Now, before I commit this, if I add all of these files, we'll see the problem. There's all this horrible broken white space. And as Rider is refusing to be helpful and get rid of it when I tell it to, we shall just open the file in Atom and hit save. And there, no trailing white space. So that, we'll be able to go back to AppVeyor and see that it is running a build. There we go, so that will run through in a minute and hopefully prove that our tests work elsewhere other than just on my machine. It also means I no longer have the excuse of it works on my machine, which I guess is a good thing. Right, as we've mentioned security and logging of things a few times, I think it would be interesting to have the concept on our toggle of when the thing's changed. So we have two choices on this. Depending on what framework we're using for doing event sourcing, such as Martin, we might not need to do anything to our event. So although our events are just blank, a lot of the event sourcing frameworks wrap your event with some more metadata, things like a sequence number and a date of when the event was actually applied. This means that we could use that as the date stamp of when the change happened. But the downside to this is when the event was saved to the database is not necessarily when it was emitted code side. So if you had a long-running process that starts off by emitting a couple of events to this toggle and then does some complicated processing and then later on emits another event, there might be a fairly large gap between it. You want to be able to see that in your timestamps on the database level, because later on you might want to write a projection that looks for any slow running pieces of code. You could say this particular toggle, whenever anyone changes it, takes a long time. But if you only have the timestamps of when the transaction was committed to the database, then they're all going to have the same date stamp. So really what we want is a date time of now. Same goes to this one. The other option, of course, is to have a base class for your events that has a timestamp on, and all timestamps will then get the current time when they're created set on them. But, well, that does have a lot of benefits. In fact, I might do that. I was kind of trying to avoid having a base class for my events, but the alternative is implementing this logic every single time. I think rather than a base class, or even that, what we can do instead is create an interface for this. Have like no, not a class, an interface. Time stamped. Time with a capital S for stamped or not? I don't know. That seems better to me. Right, that'll do. So on this we shall have a date time called timestamp. I see, it should be a capital. When I wasn't thinking about it. There we go. Is that going to rename the file as well? No, that's decidedly not useful, so I'll just delete it and create it again. Interface. I timestamped. So date time, timestamp. And this is going to be get and settable. And we're going to make our interfaces implement this. And the same goes for this one. that's all we're going to do. We're not actually going to set it ourselves in the constructors. Instead, what we're going to do in our aggregate root, we should do this. When we apply an event for the first time, not in the loading method, just when they're applied, before we actually apply it, we'll just say time stamp equals at event as I timestamped. If timestamped is not null, timestamped dot timestamp equals datetime dot now. Now I don't have to worry about when the transaction is committed, and I don't have to remember to implement the fact that I want to timestamp it in all of my events. As long as they implement that interface, the second it is applied to the aggregate for the first time, we'll end up with a timestamp being set. We can do similar things for sequence numbers later on, but this is something that undoubtedly needs some tests. So our aggregate root tests. Fact. When a timestampable event is applied, and we also have a when timestampable event is loaded, because we want to prove that this one sets it and that this one doesn't. Yes, Gloves Bro. Although not technically ASP.NET Core yet, there will be some of it later, but we're just .NET Core at the moment. This is just a class library. But as I intend to make this API driven, then yes, ASP everywhere. Or unless I go really hipster and use Jasper or something. And I am a bit of a hipster, so we'll see. Right, so when a timestamp event is applied, so I'm going to aggregate dot, right, so we'll have a new event down here, private class time stamped implements I timestampable. Good, that's all that needs. And this already just applies the event and adds it to a scene collection. So what we can do is say aggregate.raise new time stamped. What did I call my test event? Stamped. New stamped. Now we can say aggregate.scene events single we'll have to cast it as well as stamped. Let's do it like this instead. Cast stamped single timestamp should not be null. I don't actually care what it is, just as long as it's been set. Let's add some new lines in here so we can actually see what's going on. Interestingly, having this number of dots in a method train is sometimes called a train wreck, because you know these look like carriages and the little coupling separating them. I can see the point. And now we'll also raise. Yeah, we don't need to test for a non-timestamped event not having the timestamp written, because all of these other tests in here will break if it tries to assign a timestamp to something that shouldn't have one. So now we want to check that one loads correctly. So we say new var event, I should call it E, equals new stamped, and because we're loading an event, we'll give it a date time. date time 2017 2 3. Yeah, it'll do. And we'll say aggregate.load. Now we can't use our underscore aggregate for this kind of thing because we want to load one, so we'll say, can this one do loading? No, we need to expose that. Oh, actually, because it's a custom one, we can do it. Probably load from. Let's make it a params, because then I can use an array or a single event if I want to. Params object array events, and we'll see. Load. What's the base method called? Load from events. Load from events. Events. Ah, and of course it's private, so we need to do that. This. And I need a dot. Right. So we can actually say underscore aggregate load from e aggregate dot scene events single. Let's put this date stamp in a separate variable actually. And we'll inline that. So the scene events dot, oh, I've got to cast it again. Cast stamped dot single timestamp should be the timestamp we passed in. Now the reason I wanted to extract it into its own variable is that if it gets overwritten by the aggregate loading, then we'd just be comparing the timestamp back to the overwritten variable, so we wouldn't actually be asserting that anything worked as we intended. And that's going to blow up already because we need to do register a stamped event to scene events.add. Right. That should work, maybe. And our build from earlier passed as well. Excellent. Right, and as usual, I don't trust events that I haven't seen fail. So let's just comment out that. It's like reverse TDD. Ooh. So let's add that. Oh look, white space everywhere again. That is in aggregate root tests. Seems such a shame I have to open a different editor just to remove all the white space. Aggregate root auto timestamp events if they implement time stamped. Right, so now we've taken care of our need for these events to have timestamps. But we're not actually doing anything with the timestamp. So do we want to do something? So what we could do is have a public datetime last modified. Let's call it last toggled. And should actually be a nullable datetime because it might not have ever been toggled, although you could technically say that it was initially toggled off when it was created, but it's going from an unknown state, so we'll do that. And let's write some tests first for the fun of it. Let's write them as separate tests as well, so we'll say fact switching when turning on, and when, I suppose we should stick with the same language. Language is important, so when switching, even if I can't type it off, let's make that switching as well. So create toggle new, no, let's not do that, and we'll just say underscore toggle dot switch on, create toggle, and this needs to be off, needs to be on to start with, so could we do it like that instead? Yeah, rather than calling the method, we'll just say new switched on event, and we need to set the date time because datetime.now new toggled off timestamp equals now, and finally we'll have a test to prove that it is not set when we haven't done, when a toggle has not been switched, and our assertion just says toggle dot last my typing is getting worse. Should not, can I do not have value? I think that works with nullable. Find out in a minute. And now we want to say toggle last toggled. Let's do this RV now. Should be now. Oh, and that works as well, that's nice. Last should be now. No. Right, and these should fail. Well, this one should be fine. But the other two should fail because we haven't actually implemented this. You just have a property that's not being set. Ooh. Okay, so that apparently doesn't work, so let's do has value should be false. Let's see if that works. And while we're waiting for the tests to run, I will manually remove all this white space because rider. That's better. So let's implement this. We just need to say last toggled equals datetime.now. This is not right. This might pass the test, which is why our test should say something like subtract 1, 2, 3. No, let's do add hours minus 1, 2, 3. So now we're proving that not only is our timestamp not being overwritten, but that the method, so I'll just prove this does fail, we shouldn't be getting state out of thin air when we're applying our methods, applying our events, because in the future when you replay the event, you don't want it to, it was last switched on now every time you load it, because that would be wrong. You want to use the timestamp that's in the event. You can see here, this one's not got the right value, whereas this one is null. So in here, it's not datetime.now, it is e.timestamp. And likewise for this. And now, as you can see, my properties are still just auto properties, active and last toggled. But because they're only ever handled by these two methods, we can see that they make one unit of work. When one changes, the other one changes. Great. Let's check that I've not done any stupid white space or anything. Toggle, add timestamp, add last toggled property to the. I don't need to say what it's been added to. It's implicit. Right. That's all I'm going to do for now. I might come back on later, but as it stands, I need to get ready and go and pick up heavy things at the gym. So, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, feel free to send me messages on Twitter or GitHub, or check out the code on GitHub, or you know, send me pull requests. Implement the rest of it for me, you know. But yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.